President Trump has set an ultimatum to the Hamas terror organization. They must agree to his terms, or the IDF will be given the green light to completely wipe them out. And now we're in the midst of this plan's implementation phase, as the IDF has shifted to a defensive posture and puts the operation to take full control of Gaza City on hold. However, although President Trump welcomed the halt to the IDF's offensive actions in the Gaza Strip, he also warned Hamas by saying, "I will not tolerate delays." And meanwhile, negotiations are underway, and Israel has said that it will not withdraw while they are ongoing, and if Hamas continues to throw up obstacles and play games, the IDF is preparing for that too. Today we bring you the objectives, the limitations, and the guidance for the IDF forces in the field in this new reality that we're experiencing. Meanwhile, 137 activists from the Sumud flotilla to the Gaza Strip were deported to Turkey on Saturday amidst large anti-Israel demonstrations in several European cities. Dozens of other activists are scheduled to be deported in the coming days, but some countries are signaling a reluctance to accept them back. Welcome to Boots on the Ground. I'm Shoshani, filling in today for Yael Pinto, who's taking a much-needed vacation. But like him, I'll be bringing you all the truth about what's happening in Israel. So give a click on the subscribe button if you haven't already, and let's start with the headlines. When the call from President Trump came to halt the offensive action in Gaza City, the fighting was very intense at that moment. But the IDF stopped all offensive action at 3 a.m. on Saturday morning, even though seconds before the ceasefire, a subterranean tunnel was exposed near a hospital in Gaza City. It's also important to point out that there are armed clans and other factions in Gaza that are fighting against Hamas, and some are claiming to receive support from Israel in doing so, and it is not clear if they are part of the ceasefire or not. There's also the possibility that even if Hamas announces its agreement to a ceasefire, rogue elements could continue attacking IDF outposts. With that in mind, for the first time on Saturday, President Trump provided a response to Hamas's answer to the outline he presented to end the war, saying, "Let's get it done quickly, everyone will be treated fairly." Israel will receive all 48 hostages within 72 hours from the moment the agreement is approved. The IDF will remain in the Gaza Strip, and the IDF withdrawal will only be to the yellow line. Additionally, in the first stage of the agreement, Hamas will be disarmed. And meanwhile, a senior official in Jerusalem added, Hamas will not be able to claim it doesn't know where each of the living hostages is. However, the terrorist organization claims that months will be required to locate the hostages. And although this might mean the remains of hostages who have died in captivity, which Hamas has said several times they've lost track of long ago. In related news, the 42 boats of the Sumud flotilla were intercepted by the Israeli Navy on Thursday, which was Yom Kippur, and all of the activists were taken to Ashdod port to be processed and deported as quickly as possible. Swedish climate activist turned anti-Israel agitator Greta Thunberg complained that she was held in a cell with bedbugs, and other detained activists also had complaints about how they've been treated in Israeli custody. However, as of Saturday afternoon, 137 of these activists have already been deported to Turkey. And although many of the other countries that have citizens among the detainees appear to be reluctant to accept them back. Imagine that. Meanwhile, the Israeli Foreign Ministry called them provocateurs of the service of Hamas and clarified that their aim was a PR stunt and not humanitarian aid. We have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into the details. I'm Shoshani, filling in today for Yael Pinto. We'll be back next week, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on day 730 of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shiite militias in Iraq, and all the other armed groups operating in this region under the control of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the head of the crumbling axis of evil in the Middle East. A moment before we start, I want to call you to continue to spread the truth. Share our content because Israel is fighting for the truth, and that battle will continue long after the guns fall silent in Gaza. Every day, millions of lies are spread about what is happening on the ground, and here on Boots on the Ground, we report all the truth. So share, leave a comment, and most importantly, don't forget to click the subscribe button so you'll stay tuned in for the next truth that comes your way. Leket is our partner today. They're making a difference, and we'll tell you how later in the show. Let's get started by taking a look at what's been happening on the ground in the Gaza Strip just minutes before the IDF's halt of fighting, and afterwards, we'll bring you all the details on the diplomatic moves taking shape. Just minutes before the IDF was ordered to stop offensive actions, an underground tunnel was exposed near a hospital in Gaza City. In a statement by the IDF spokesperson, it was reported that during operations in the southern part of Gaza City, forces of Division 36 and the Shin Bet, guided by military intelligence and in cooperation with the Yahalom unit, located a tunnel shaft near the hospital, which led to an underground machine shop. The route that was identified is part of a military post of the Hamas terror organization, where according to the intelligence indications, company and platoon commanders of the organization were present at the time. The reported length is about 1.5 kilometers, and inside were found production rooms, meeting rooms, and senior officer rooms. In addition to the route identified near the Jordanian hospital, the forces located another shaft under the Hamad hospital in Gaza City. The IDF statement added that for years the organization established an underground system beneath hospitals throughout the Strip, used for producing weapons and managing the fighting. At the same time, Hamas tried to launch an attack against the Al-Mujahida clan living in Khan Yunis. A Palestinian source from the Strip said that the IDF assisted the clan in the attack, which was broken up with 22 Hamas terrorists eliminated. According to sources in the Gaza Strip, Hamas is motivated to launch this attack on the Al-Mujahida clan by desire for revenge, after several of its members beat up a Hamas operative who was active in the Saham unit, which is responsible for catching collaborators who work with Israel. Now, Hamas has 22 more reasons to try and take revenge against this family, so we'll keep an eye out to see if they try again. In the meantime, a senior security source reported on Saturday evening that after the intensified activity of the IDF across all its branches in the last month, the IDF controls this evening 50% of the area of Gaza City. Additionally, nearly 900,000 Gazan residents have already evacuated south, while at present the IDF is holding its fire. It should also be mentioned that the IDF was surprised by President Trump's announcement that it needed to cease offensive operations immediately, as Hamas is only ready to accept some of the terms of his 21-point plan, even as they continue to play games with the other terms. However, after earlier consultations that stretch into the night, IDF Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir convened the military brass, and they decided on guidelines for the fighting echelon, including reinforcing forces for the benefit of Southern Command, central attention to protecting the security of our forces due to the great concern about an attack or harm to soldiers, such as fire into protected areas, and worst of all, a kidnapping event, scenarios which are always a concern. Just miles from the Gaza border, Zion Maman has spent his life farming the same land his father once turned from sand into fertile soil. His son Tal was carrying that legacy forward until October 7th, when terrorists attacked their moshav. Tal fought to defend his home and never came back. Zion nearly gave up the farm, but volunteers from Leket Israel arrived, harvesting crops, rescuing produce, and offering support where it was needed most. But here's what's bigger than one farm. When we help save a single farm in Israel, we're not just saving a family's livelihood, we're growing food for the entire nation. That one seed multiplies. It feeds thousands of people across Israel who otherwise would go hungry. Leket is helping farmers recover. They're rebuilding Israel's food chain, and they need us to keep going. Go to blesstheharvest.org and donate now. Because when we stand with one farmer, we bless a nation. And now we're switching our focus to diplomatic developments. On Friday, US President Donald Trump set an ultimatum, according to which a deal must be reached with Hamas by Sunday evening at 6 p.m. Washington time. Hamas is a brutal and violent menace in the Middle East, and in retribution for the October 7th attack on civilization, more than 25,000 of its soldiers have been killed. Most of the rest are surrounded and militarily trapped, just waiting for me to give the command, go, so that their lives will be ended. As for the rest, we know where you are and who you are, and you will be hunted down and eliminated. End quote. He added, I ask all innocent Palestinians to leave immediately this area to safer parts of Gaza. everyone will receive better care from those who are waiting to help. For the good fortune of Hamas, they will be given one last chance. Major, strong, and rich countries in the Middle East, together with the United States of America, have agreed with Israel's signature to peace in the Middle East. This deal also preserves the lives of all remaining Hamas fighters. The details of the document are known to the world. It is great. We will have peace in the Middle East one way or another. In Israel, this announcement was welcomed, as one of the criticisms that was heard about the Trump 21-point plan was that it lacked a deadline and timelines. 20-point plan. The Americans spoke of a wait of 3 to 4 days, and when the answer did not arrive, President Trump set this clear deadline and also announced that he expects a signed agreement to avoid an ambiguous Hamas response of yes, but style as they've done in the past. Nevertheless, sources familiar with the matter explained that the ultimatum was not coordinated. According to them, Hamas is aware of Trump's pressure, but the ultimatum was meant to place them in a problematic position vis-a-vis the public Gaza and the Arab states. The Americans, for their part, clarified that this is a take-it-or-leave-it deal, and at most, they will agree to technical changes only. But that, from their standpoint, the deal is not subject to negotiation. At the same time, according to Bloomberg News report, the Gulf states are increasingly inclined to advance President Trump's plan to end the war in Gaza, even if Hamas does not accept it. Sources familiar with the negotiations, who asked to remain anonymous, have reported to the site that a regional consensus is forming on the need to move forward with a day-after plan without granting Hamas veto power, even if there's still hope that the organization will ultimately agree to the proposal. According to this report, the Gulf states' position stems from the desire to reduce instability in the region in order to continue economic development plans like Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030, as well as from internal public pressure to end the war. Also, Clause 17 in the document states explicitly that if Hamas refuses or delays in its response, implementation will nevertheless commence in areas that Israel defines as clear. With that understood, the IDF is currently holding its military advance in Gaza and continuing to fire only for defensive purposes. Additionally, the Prime Minister's office responded overnight between Friday and Saturday to Hamas's announcement and to Trump's response to the framework, saying, in light of the Hamas response, Israel is preparing for the immediate implementation of the first phase of the Trump plan and immediate release of all hostages. We will continue to work in full cooperation with the President and his team to end the war in accordance with the principles set by Israel that align with President Trump's vision. The IDF spokesperson also reported that in accordance with the directive of the political echelon, the Chief of Staff instructed to advance preparations for implementation of the first phase of the Trump plan for the release of the hostages. Alongside this, it was emphasized that the security of our forces is top priority and that all IDF capabilities will be allocated to Southern Command for the protection of our forces. It's important to point out that as part of the Gideon Chariots B operation, the IDF has not yet reached Hamas's strongholds and targets in the city, and the maneuver was carried out deliberately in a slow manner and in full coordination between the political and the military echelons over the past month. Now, the offensive operation has been completely halted, pending further developments. Then on Saturday evening, another dramatic development arose as President Trump urged Hamas to move forward in the talks for an agreement, welcomed Israel's halting of the bombing in Gaza, and declared that Hamas must act quickly or else all the cards are on the table. In a post on his Truth social network, President Trump added, "I appreciate the fact that Israel has temporarily stopped the bombings to give an opportunity for the release of the hostages and for peace agreement. I'll not tolerate delays, which many think are expected to happen, or any other outcome in which Gaza again constitutes a threat. Let's finish this quickly. Everyone will receive fair treatment." President Trump published the post against the backdrop of concerns that Hamas, as per usual, will try to drag out time in the negotiations. In his remarks, the president essentially explains to the terror organization that he will not agree to delays, and clarified that this is a take-it-or-leave-it proposition. The stages of the framework are not subject to change, and at most, technical matters will be discussed in the negotiation that Egypt is scheduled to host in Cairo this coming Monday. Now, with all of that in mind, let's take a look at some of the clauses in this proposal plan to end the war. First of all, the IDF will cease all offensive action immediately and only fire in self-defense. Secondly, the Gaza Strip will become a demilitarized area free of terrorism that will not constitute a threat to its neighbors. Third, the Gaza Strip will be redeveloped for the benefit of its residents who've suffered enough already. Fourth, if both sides agree to the proposal, the war will end immediately. IDF forces will withdraw to an agreed line in order to prepare for the release of the hostages. During this period, all military actions will cease, including aerial and artillery bombings, and the lines of fighting will be frozen until the conditions are met for a gradual and full withdrawal. Next, within 72 hours from the moment Israel publicly declares acceptance of the agreement, all the hostages, both living and dead, will be returned. After the release of all the hostages, Israel will release 250 Palestinian security prisoners serving life sentences and another 1,700 Gazans who were arrested after October 7, 2023, including all the women and children who were arrested in this context. For each fallen Israeli hostage who is returned, Israel will release the remains of 15 additional Gazans. After the release of all the hostages, Hamas members who commit to coexistence and peace will be given the option to lay down their arms and receive amnesty. Whoever wishes to leave the Gaza Strip will be granted the option of safe passage to receiving countries. Upon acceptance of the agreement, full aid will immediately flow to the Gaza Strip in volumes that are at least as large as set in the agreements of January 19th of this year, including rehabilitation of water, electricity, and sewage infrastructure, rehabilitation of hospitals and bakeries, and the entry of equipment for debris removal and road opening. Distribution of this aid will be carried out through the UN and its agencies, the Red Crescent, and additional international bodies not connected to either side. Opening the Rafah crossing in both directions will be done according to the same mechanism. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GHF, which has been making the UN look bad by delivering aid much more efficiently and effectively than the UN ever did, will not be operating in the Strip any longer. On that note, the Gaza Strip will be managed temporarily by a Palestinian technocratic and apolitical committee that will provide daily services and operate under the oversight of a new transitional international body called the Peace Council, to be headed by President Donald Trump, with the participation of additional leaders, including former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair. This body will set the framework and manage development funding until the Palestinian Authority completes its reform and can return to govern the Strip safely and effectively once more. Speaking of which, a special economic zone will also be established with preferential tariffs and access arrangements to be set with participating countries. Next, and this point is crucial, no one will be required to leave Gaza, but anyone who wants to will be able to exit and return. Hamas and other factions will commit not to participate in any way in the administration of Gaza. All terror infrastructure will be destroyed and not rebuilt, and the demilitarization process will be managed under international supervision, including a buyback program and reintegration of fighters. Regional partners will provide guarantees for Hamas and the faction's compliance with the commitments and to ensure that the new Gaza Strip will not constitute a threat. The US will work with Arab and international partners to establish a temporary international stabilization force to be called ISF, which will immediately enter the Gaza Strip. The force will train and support Palestinian police forces, will be vetted, and will coordinate its activity with Jordan and Egypt. The force will work with Israel and Egypt to secure the borders and prevent weapons smuggling while arranging the rapid and safe passage of goods. Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza. As the international force establishes control and stability, the IDF will withdraw according to milestones and conditions to be set between the IDF, the international force, Arab states, and the US, until full handover of the Gaza Strip to them. Only a peripheral security presence will be maintained until it is completely ensured that there is no terrorism threat from the Gaza Strip towards Israel. Now, if Hamas delays or rejects the proposal, the arrangement and aid will continue in terror-free areas that are transferred from the IDF control to the international force. An interfaith dialogue process will begin on values of tolerance and partnership to change narratives among Palestinians and Israelis to emphasize the benefits of peace. As Gaza's development progress and the Palestinian Authority reform is implemented, conditions will be created for a credible path to Palestinian self-determination and statehood, which is the aspiration of the Palestinian people, according to Western liberals, although I've personally never heard of any Palestinian people say this is what they actually want. On that note, the 20th point in the plan is that the US will hold a dialogue between Israel and the Palestinians to agree on a political horizon for coexistence of peace and prosperity. As many have pointed out, there is a 21st point to President Trump's plan, but as of now, this last point has not been publicly released. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to bring you every development on this matter. Keep spreading the truth, share and follow us, and most important of all, don't forget to click the subscribe button if you haven't already, so you'll stay tuned to the truth in real time and never miss an episode of Boots on the Ground. Now, before we continue, it's important to point out a few things. First, Israeli officials are saying that it's too soon to get anyone's hopes up about these negotiations, which are scheduled to start at Cairo on Monday, as there are still substantial gaps and Hamas is playing the usual game, refusing to commit to releasing all the remaining hostages in the first 72 hours or to disarm, which are Israel's key demands. Senior Hamas official Musa Abba Marzouk even claimed that the organization would need months to locate all hostages, including the living, but also the remains of those who have died in captivity. Israel's rejected these remarks, and a senior source said that Hamas will not be able to claim it does not know where each of the living hostages is. We know that it knows, and we know it can reach them. There are 20 living hostages. Meanwhile, Palestinian sources said that the mediators made it clear to Hamas that this time it's forbidden to drag out time, but that the terror organization wishes to hold the hostages throughout the entire negotiation period. At this time, an Israeli delegation led by Minister Ron Dermer is expected to depart for Cairo for discussions, and the source said that the ball is in Hamas's court. If it releases the hostages as required, the agreement will go forward. However, Hamas has apparently said that most of its military capability has already been destroyed during the fighting, and there is no longer any point to talking about demilitarization. They further add that if the occupation ends and an independent Palestinian state is established, Hamas will no longer have justification to hold weapons, and all capabilities will be transferred to the Palestinian Authority. In addition, there's a deep dispute over the proposal to establish an international peace council that would govern Gaza on the day after. Hamas emphasizes that it will not agree to foreign rule over the Palestinian people and calls to leave the determination of the Strip's future in the hands of all the Palestinian factions. It added in a statement that they will not accept an external governor like Tony Blair to determine Gaza's fate. That is all the information we have right now on this subject. Here at TBN Israel, we'll continue to bring you every development on the matter. And as always, we invite you to be part of the team by supporting the truth, share and follow us, and most importantly, don't forget to click the subscribe button if you haven't already, so you'll stay tuned to the truth in real time. And now we'll move to the topic the whole world is talking about. The Sumud flotilla, which departed from Spain last month and was later joined by dozens of vessels from various countries, reached at its peak 42 ships carrying about 500 pro-Palestinian activists, including internationally known figures such as Swedish activist Greta Thunberg. The stated purpose of the flotilla was to deliver humanitarian aid to the Strip, as the activists claimed that governments had failed to do so. That was a flat-out lie, as here at TBN Israel and on many other media outlets, it has been widely reported that massive amounts of humanitarian aid have been sent into the Strip from several countries all over the world, including Israel, by the way. Most of the aid has been sent in by trucks, but there have also been airdrops, and there was even an effort to deliver aid from the sea. However, these activists were not interested in the truth. They just wanted to make a point. As we later found out, the boats weren't even carrying any food or medicine to bring to the Gaza Strip. All the activists had lots of camera equipment, so they could film themselves sailing to Gaza and post the videos on social media. But there was no humanitarian aid in the cargo holds of these small boats. It's also notable that many of them threw their cameras and their phones into the sea as the Israeli Navy was approaching. One can only wonder what they were trying to hide. And also, since many of them claimed to be environmentalists, it's also notable that they littered and polluted the sea by casting their stuff into it. Furthermore, last Tuesday, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs published a document that proves Hamas's involvement in financing and carrying out the Sumud flotilla to Gaza, as some of the ships participating in the flotilla belong to a Spanish company named Cyber Neptune, which is owned by Saif Abu Kashk, an activist in the PCPA organization, which is closely connected to the Hamas terrorists. Sadly, no one seemed to take any notice of these facts, and on the early morning hours of Thursday, which was Yom Kippur in Israel, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, the ships were approaching the coast of Gaza in an attempt to run the blockade when they were somewhat anticlimactically intercepted by the commandos from the Israeli Navy Shayetet 13 unit with the assistance of the Israel Prison Services Mitzada unit. The action by the Israeli forces opened with a clear warning over the radio network saying the following: "This is the Israeli Navy. We are approaching an area under blockade. If you wish to transfer aid to Gaza, you can do so through regulated channels. Please change your course towards the port of Ashdod, where the aid will undergo a security inspection and will then be transferred to the Gaza Strip." When the activists did not respond to this warning, the Shayetet 13 commandos and Mitzada officers went into action, boarding the vessels one after the other, detaining the activists and leading the ships to the port of Ashdod. The IDF emphasized that the operation proceeded without armed resistance and without any casualties. In a video published prior to the boarding, Greta Thunberg, the 22-year-old political activist from Sweden, was seen declaring, "My name is Greta Thunberg. I'm a citizen of Sweden. If you're watching this video, it means that I've been kidnapped and taken against my will by Israeli forces." The Ministry of Foreign Affairs published another video in which Thunberg is seen speaking calmly with a commander during the boarding. Upon arrival of the vessels at the port of Ashdod, a large-scale deployment of hundreds of police officers, Israel Prison Service personnel, and population authority officials was deployed to receive them, once again in the midst of Yom Kippur. Roughly 425 activists were taken off the ships one by one and transferred to a strict sorting and identification procedure. Due to the high media profile of some of the detainees, the security forces were required to act, in the commissioner's words, with sensitivity but also with firmness. Already during Yom Kippur, the first two buses were transported to Ktziot prison, where some of the detainees were held for further investigation and screening procedures. Because of the special legal definition of those pro-Palestinians as people entering Israel unlawfully, they will not be brought before a court for a remand extension, so the Ministry of the Interior officials will be the ones to handle their cases. Sources in Israel clarified that anyone willing to return to their country will be deported on a flight back to Europe at the expense of the State of Israel, while those who refuse will remain in detention until another decision is made. According to the Reuters report, about 137 activists who were detained by Israel for participation in the Sumud flotilla were transferred on Saturday by plane to Istanbul, Turkey. Sources in the Turkish Foreign Ministry quoted in the report said that amongst the Sumud flotilla's activists present are 36 Turkish citizens, as well as citizens of the United States, the United Arab Emirates, Algeria, Morocco, Italy, Kuwait, Libya, Malaysia, Mauritania, Switzerland, Tunisia, and Jordan. The Al-Mayadin news portal reported, among the activists present, there are Turkish members of parliament. The Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated that all the detainees are in good condition and healthy, and that Israel is working to complete their deportation as soon as possible. Despite the activists' claims that they were returned under harsh conditions, Israel in response published photos of the activists smiling, and the security establishment emphasized that the conduct was according to international law. The current flotilla is the latest in a series of attempts by activists from around the world to break the naval blockade that Israel has imposed on the Gaza Strip since Hamas's takeover in 2007. However, Israeli officials clarified that this is a provocative move and not a genuine humanitarian activity, adding that the naval blockade is recognized as legal under international law, and any attempt to violate it constitutes a direct security risk. Israel will not allow the penetration of vessels into Gaza's maritime area, and all humanitarian aid is transferred only through the land crossing under international supervision. Here at TBN Israel, we'll continue to spread the truth. Share and follow us, and most importantly, don't forget to pray. Pray for our hostages who are held in Gaza. Keep praying for the peace of IDF soldiers wherever they are, in the air, at sea, and on land. Pray for the peace and the people of Israel. And above all, don't forget to pray for the peace of Jerusalem.